Earlier this year, I reviewed the IQUNIX MQ80, a premium low-profile keyboard that quickly became one of my favorite low-profile keyboards in recent memory. I was hoping that IQUNIX would come out with more layouts, and my wish has been granted because today we're looking at the MQ80. It's got a more functional layout but retains the premium aluminum build and wireless connectivity. But does it also offer the same excellent typing feel and sound? Let's take a closer look. Before we dive in, I want to mention that IQUNIX sent me the MQ80 for the purpose of reviewing it. I was not paid to make this video, and IQUNIX has no input on my review. I do have an affiliate link in the description for you if you're interested in picking up the MQ80 and you'd like to support this channel. So, if you liked the design and the features of the MQ80, but the lack of a function row just didn't work for you, then the MQ80 is here to solve that. We've got a similar case design, but a couple styling differences, and those important function row keys are here, along with some extra nav keys. It's still a compact, low-profile keyboard, though, and I have to say, you know what, actually, I'll hold that thought for now. Let's start, as we always do, with a rundown of the features and the specs of the MQ80, then we'll do a sound test, and then we'll get into pros and cons. The MQ80 is, well, not really an 80% keyboard, it's really more like a 75%, but anyway, it's got 84 keys, no knobs or rollers, and an ANSI layout. The case construction is all aluminum, and there are two anodized color options, black and silver. Both of them have a red accent on the right side. The dimensions are 321 by 124.5 millimeters with a front height of just 10.2 millimeters and a rear height of 20 millimeters without the keycaps. The weight is 1,180 grams or 2.6 pounds. I measured the typing angle at just about 4 degrees and there are no adjustable feet. Internals include a hot swappable FlexCut PCB compatible with Kailh low-profile switches, a FlexCut FR4 plate, and a unique tray mount that has been modified by IQUNIX to offer more flexibility. There is a switch pad, foam between the PCB and plate, and foam in the case bottom. The stabilizers are plate-mounted and lubricated. Connectivity includes Bluetooth for 3 devices with 125 Hz polling, 2.4 GHz with 1000 Hz polling, and USB-C wired also with 1000 Hz polling. The switches are Kailh Gold Red low profile with a 40-gram actuation force, 1.2 millimeters of pre-travel, and 2.8 millimeters of total travel. The keycaps are dye sub PBT with an anti-oil coating and sub legends, but they are not shine through. Both Windows and Mac modifier keycaps are included. The MQ80 includes a 4,000 mAh battery, and IQUNIX estimates 350 hours of battery life with all of the lighting turned off in the Bluetooth mode. The backlighting includes full south-facing RGB with 18 modes that can be controlled with key commands and in VIA. The side light has separate controls, and it also provides a battery level indicator and connection status indicator. The MQ80 is VIA compatible for remapping and macro creation. There are built-in Mac and Windows modes, and the key map has 4 total layers. The MQ80 launched on Kickstarter but is now available directly on the IQUNIX website for $159 US, not including shipping. All right, now let's get into some pros and cons for the MQ80. First up, let's talk about the build quality. It's great, just like the MQ80. The aluminum here is not like other low-profile keyboards. This feels very solid, just like the material you would find in a high-profile keyboard. The design of the case is subjective, of course, but the materials they've used here feel very high quality. And I did not find any quality control issues on my unit. Everything was solid. There were no marks, there was nothing off with the way it was put together. Next up, we have good connectivity here with 3 Bluetooth connections, 2.4 GHz, and of course, wired. The Bluetooth and 2.4 GHz were both stable for me. I do have one minor con to mention later about Bluetooth, but I didn't have any stability issues with the signal for either Bluetooth or 2.4 GHz at my typical distances of up to 3 feet from the computer without any obstructions. Next in the pros, we have VIA for customization. It's pretty straightforward here because there are no knobs or rollers or anything extra on the MQ80, so we're just talking about remapping your layers and creating macros. You can also change the backlight modes in VIA as well. There is a built-in Windows and Mac mode switch, so you don't have to sacrifice one of your layers in VIA for different layout modes. There are 2 layers that you can do anything with, and there is plenty of space in the main function layer as well. Let's talk about battery life. In terms of low-profile keyboards that are VIA compatible, 300 to 350 hours with the lighting turned off is actually very good. For reference, the Lofree Air 75 V2 gets about 220 hours with the lights off, and the Keychron K3 Max gets only 73 hours with the lights off, and those are both keyboards that also use QMK-based firmware with VIA for customization. So with all of the lights turned on here, you're not going to get near 300 plus hours, but it should still likely be better than the K3 Max or the Lofree Air 75 V2. So all in all, this is still very good for this type of keyboard. Moving on, the keycaps are also good here. We have dye sub PBT with an oil-resistant coating, and they have a nice PBT texture to them. There are just a couple of tiny little minor inconsistencies on my set, but nothing that I personally notice in daily use. Just to tell you what they are, the W key is slightly off center compared to the others, and the lines of my D key here are a little soft when you look closely at them, and that could be because these are dye sub printing rather than double shot Legends. But all in all, again, unless I'm really scrutinizing it and really paying attention to it, I don't notice either of those things. And in general, the quality of the keycaps is quite nice. And right under the keycaps, we have the Kailh Gold Red switches, which have a 40-gram actuation force. I actually think that this is a better set in terms of the lubing consistency than what I had in my Magi 65, because a few of those had some spring ping issues which required extra lubing to get rid of. But in my MQ80 here, I'm not hearing any of that ping sound, which is nice. Now, another built-in pro here is that because Kailh has greatly expanded their selection of low-profile switches in just the last couple of years, you now have several options if you want to swap them out. The MQ80 is hot swappable, and it's compatible with Kailh's low-profile switches. Just make sure you don't get the Kailh Chalk low-profile switches that don't have MX-style keycap connections. I personally like the all-palm switches that Kailh makes, including the ones that actually come in the Lofree Flow, and those are compatible if you want to use those. Here's how a set of the Ghost linear switches from the Flow sound in the MQ80. Those switches are also just a little bit heavier in terms of the actuation force compared to the stock switches, and I really like the sound of them. Speaking of the sound, let's keep going with pros here. Now, whether you like it is up to you in terms of, your interpretation of the sound. But in terms of pros here, the typing sound, it's not overly loud, and there are no inherently bad sounds generated here. There's no bad resonance, there's no hollow sound, there's no pingy noises. But since sound is subjective, we'll come back to it in the neutral section in just a second. The last thing that I want to mention here in the pros is also something that's going to bleed over into subjective territory, and that's the typing feel. I basically have the same thing to say about the MQ80 that I said about the Magi 65. It's an achievement for a low-profile keyboard. It's got the lower typing travel experience of a low-profile keyboard, but it's also got a feel that crosses over into high-profile territory because it's got both a cushioned and a flexible feel. The flex cuts on the PCB and the FR4 plate give you that localized flexing, and the way that they've implemented this type of a specialized tray mount also adds to the flexibility and the cushion that you feel. So the typing feel overall is not fatiguing. So let's now move into the neutral category where we talk about everything that is very subjective, and it could be a pro or a con depending on your point of view. Let's start by wrapping up the conversation about the feel and the sound. As I just said a second ago, the feel is more flexible and cushioned than most low-profile keyboards. The Lofree Air 75 V2 feels downright stiff by comparison. It's also marginally more cushioned and flexible feeling than the Lofree Flow. So if you prefer a stiffer feel, then this might not be the best match. I personally love it, but it is absolutely a matter of preference. Now, the sound also, of course, is something you may or may not like. It's a tad louder, I think, than the Lofree Flow in its stock configuration, but it's quieter than the Air 75 V2 with, I think, all of the switch options there. And the sound, in general, the pitch of it and everything, it's more similar to the Flow because it shares common switches. Again, I love it, but you may not. Moving along with more neutral stuff, we have, as always, the physical design. The case looks very high quality and it's elegant with its simple aluminum bezel. There's one accent piece on the right side and it is red no matter which case color you get. So that could be the lone thing that is good or bad depending on whether red is a color you want or don't want. Now, it does actually come off. It seems to be attached with magnets, but there's nothing under there. There's no storage for, the 2.4 gigahertz receiver. There's nothing going on there. So I don't really know why it's removable, but it's red no matter which color you get. Now, the bottom of the case is more high quality aluminum. And again, we have kind of a less is more approach there. Then on the left side of the top of the case, you also have your accent lights here, which can be turned off. And even when the backlight mode is turned off for this accent light, it will still act as a connection mode status. It's a helpful little indicator light, even if you turn the backlight function off. Now, along with the design, we also have to consider the layout. This is a very functional layout, meaning you're not missing much as long as you don't need a number pad. You have arrow keys, you have several nav keys here, you've got your full function row. Now, I kind of joked earlier in the video when we were covering the features and specs that it's not really an 80% layout, which typically it comes in the form of a TKL layout with a nav cluster and arrow keys off to the side with some spacing. The MQ80 here has 84 keys. That is a common number of keys for a 75% layout. In fact, it has the same exact layout as the Lofree Flow. So yeah, keyboard layouts are kind of like clothing sizes in that sometimes you wish they'd just be consistent between different companies, but different manufacturers just kind of do what they want sometimes. But the point I want to make here is just that the layout is compact with no spacing around the arrow keys and the nav keys over here. That could be good or bad or neutral depending on your point of view. It certainly keeps the MQ80 more compact and it takes up less space on your desk than a TKL layout would because you don't have that spacing, but it still provides plenty of productivity keys. All right, the next thing in the neutral category, it's the stabilizers. Now on my unit, this is really the only weak point. The stabilizer, as you heard in the sound test, it's got a bit of rattle to it, especially on the space bar. However, I'm not counting this as a con at this point because I don't have any evidence yet that this is a consistent issue with low profile stabilizers from IQUNIX. In fact, the stabilizers on my Magi 65 seem to be the exact same ones and they performed better out of the box. So I'm thinking here, with a little bit of lubing, the MQ80 is gonna sound just fine. And I think maybe could be a matter of consistency on the stabilizer lubing, but I didn't think they were bad enough to call them a con. And the last thing in the neutral category is the weight of the MQ80 and sort of what that means for its portability. This is neutral and not a con because it really depends on what you're looking for in your low profile keyboard and what you intend to do with it. If you just like the typing feel of low profile, but you're not looking for a keyboard to travel with, you're never gonna put it in a backpack and carry it around, then this, well, it won't matter at all. But if you do want a keyboard that you can throw in your backpack regularly, then the MQ80, like the Magi 65, it's a little bit heavy for that. A low profile board that is good for travel in the same layout would be the Newfie Air 75 V2, which weighs 598 grams. The MQ80 here weighs in at 1,180 grams, which you definitely will feel, especially if you've already got a laptop and other stuff in your bag. That difference of 582 grams is 1.2 pounds more than the Air 75 V2. All right, now let's move on and talk about a couple of cons for the MQ80. Now, I don't have a lot to talk about here that would apply to everybody. There are a couple things, and you might consider some of those neutral things as cons, but let's cover these couple of things here. For the MQ80, first, unfortunately, we do have a similar situation with controlling the power of the MQ80 as we had with the Magi 65. If you hold down Function and the Escape key for 3 seconds, it will put all the connections to sleep and no keys will register any inputs. This is the most convenient way to turn off the MQ80 if you're going to put it in a bag or if you just want to put it to sleep immediately when you're done for the day. This is not truly off, it's just asleep. Now there is actually a power switch that truly shuts off the power to everything, but it's under the caps lock key and it's a super tiny little switch that you cannot reach with your finger unless your finger is like the width of a pin. You need to use a pen or a screwdriver or something to actually flip that switch. Now for travel purposes, that's the safer off to use because it can't accidentally be turned back on. Now I'm sure the goal here was to keep the exterior of the case sleek and clean by not having a physical switch on the outside. And if you do use the hidden switch to turn it off, You definitely don't have to worry about accidentally turning it back on because it's so hidden in there, but I would just like to see something a little bit easier access for truly shutting the power off. Now, the only other con I experienced has to do with the Bluetooth sleep timing and the overall experience, and I alluded to this a little bit earlier. Now, in 2.4 gigahertz mode, I didn't have this issue at all. However, Bluetooth was a different story. The connection seems to go to sleep very quickly on Bluetooth. 5 minutes, 3 minutes, I'm not sure what it is actually, but once it goes to sleep, which is pretty quick, the first key press really just wakes up the connection but does not register an input on the computer. The second key does. So for example, I'd be reading something or watching a video, and then I go back to type something not thinking the connection was asleep, and the first key press is missed because it was just waking up the connection. Now this may seem like something that's just mildly annoying, but I'm counting this as a con really because there is no control available to change the sleep timeout setting for the Bluetooth connection, and that is something you can do with a lot of other keyboards on the market. They will give you the option to even turn off sleep mode if you don't mind a little extra battery drain, or at least change it from 5 minutes to 10 minutes to 30 minutes, whatever you want. That does not appear to be an option with the MQ80. I don't know if maybe they can implement that with a firmware update or something, but right now I could not find any way to change the Bluetooth timeout setting, and it is kind of annoyingly short. All right, so overall, what do I think of the MQ80 with all of what we just talked about in mind? Let me get back to what I was going to say at the beginning of the video until I cut myself off. This keyboard, well, it looks a lot like the Lofree Flow, especially the silver and white edition here, but it's not just a copycat product. It actually solves all of my complaints about the original Lofree Flow. The aluminum is much higher quality. The Lofree Flow case feels thin and flimsy compared to this, honestly. The keycaps are better. You don't see the backlight shining through them in a distracting way at all. The battery life is better, like way better. It also has 2.4 gigahertz and the original Flow does not. It has VIA for customization and the Flow does not. It's almost like IQUNIX said, what would the Lofree Flow be like if we did all the things they didn't do? Oh, and let's not make it much more expensive. Well, all I can say is they nailed it. Aside from a couple smaller things that I mentioned, this is an excellent low-profile mechanical keyboard with a great feel and sound, high-quality materials, good battery life, good connectivity, and great customization options. I'm gonna keep using this for quite a while after this review is done. All right, so that'll do it for this video. Let me know what you think of the MQ80, and if you picked one up for yourself, let me know how you're liking it. Don't forget to subscribe to the Semi-Pro Tech and Gear channel, and while you're here, check out one of these videos. I know you'll enjoy it. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.